everyone. My name is Sophia Garcia. I'm the GIS and Outreach Director with Redistricting Partners, and today we'll be talking about school district redistricting with the California School Board Association. So we're going to start off with talking about what is redistricting. If I can get the slide over. Okay. What is redistricting? So redistricting is the process of adjusting district lines every 10 years after the release of the US Census. The well-known examples of this are in Congress and the legislature. However, we're talking about school districts. So if your school district already has districted elections, you must go through this redistricting process every 10 years following the decennial census. If your district is an at-large district in any format, then you may be subject to a claim under the California Voting Rights Act. And we will refer to your council on this specifically if you're an at-large district and if you need to convert to districted elections. So Redistricting Partners, a little bit about us. We have conducted dozens of redistricting projects over the last decade, including the Los Angeles Unified School District. We've conducted a lot of conversions from at-large districts to districted elections. Over the past 10 years, hundreds of school districts have converted under the CBRA. This redistricting cycle, we're currently performing redistricting with commissions across the state, including Long Beach, the City of Berkeley, City of Oakland, and San Jose. And we're also working with several counties and local jurisdictions in this process as well. Like I said earlier, we've conducted several conversions from the CBRA at-large districts to districted elections as well. So a little bit about our technical approach. Here at Redistricting Partners, we support an open and transparent redistricting process with particular focus on the Fair Maps Act, which was an act passed in 2019. And it talks a lot about the collaborative approach with community members. It talks a lot about tools and training. So we really believe that training the board, the commission, and the public is a really important starting point. This process only happens once a decade. So we need to train up everyone who's going to be involved in this process. Public engagement and transparency is a really key component for the redistricting process. For public engagement, we believe in partnering with community-based organizations, with making all materials available, with making any draft maps that are going to be talked about in a public hearing available 7 days prior. And also, again, a particular focus with your local community-based organizations. There's a really robust census complete count outreach program in 2020, and we really want to lean on those connections that have already been made and anyone in your particular district who wants to be involved. So for Redistricting Partners, some of that further information on the public engagement and transparency. So we will work directly with your board or commission on developing a work plan and really focuses on timeline. So we'll work internally with your staff on those timelines and then also externally with the timelines for the public to ensure that they're met. For public engagement prior to mapping, so we don't need any census data to collect community of interest testimony or any forms. We can do all of that work prior to the census being public at the end of September. We will process all of the census data for you and make it available in a mapping platform. So the census will release all of these numbers. We'll take those in and we'll make those available to you all in a mapping platform that you and the public can see. And we also believe that analyzing public input, and we ensure that all of that is equal. So we may get folks who submit community of interest forms. We may get folks who will draw their districts on a piece of paper or a napkin. And we may also get organizations who are going to submit full draft plans and may want to do a full presentation to your board. So we believe that taking all of that input and sharing it in an equal manner is really important. So we'll make those into PDFs, into Google Maps, and then we'll also have them available in the GIS shape files so that anybody will be able to see, understand all of that input that is given to you all. Like we said, the highest standards for transparency, and we are suggesting a 3 to 5 hearing structure, starting at the minimum of 3, and then it's up to your board or commission about how many other additional hearings that you would like to have. So that will be a discussion with your board. The first one could be about, like we said, public information on this process, receiving any feedback, any direction from yourselves and the public of what we want this process to look like. And again, receiving any of those community testimony prior to the census being released. A second hearing could be about presentation and any discussion of draft maps. And as we said, following under the FAIR Maps kind of structure, any of those maps need to be posted 7 days prior so that anybody from your community can look at them and really analyze them before giving testimony to you all during the public meeting. A third hearing could be about discussion or any amendments to any of those maps and potentially a selection of a final map. And as we said earlier, so any map that is talked about at any of these hearings should be posted 7 days prior. If there is a map that is open to consideration and is first brought to your board during a public hearing, we really want to make sure that you have that discussion of whether you want to discuss that map and have an additional hearing. And then the final one would be the passage of the final map. So something we want to reiterate or talk about is the timelines. So there are current deadlines for redistricting that have been accepted by your county registrars. The first one is for any of those districts who have primaries in 2022. So the deadline for those folks, and all of these are subject to change by the legislator and by the governor. There could be potential change by those two bodies. So for districts who have primaries, the deadline is December 15th of 2021. And all those districts who don't have primaries have more time to go through this process. And that deadline currently is April 17th of 2022. So an example redistricting timeline for those folks who have primaries in 2022 is to start that public hearing process in May and June of this year, to start and those optional community meetings that you could partner with a community-based organization. Those don't necessarily have to be public hearings. They can happen in different places in your community, and also just making sure those meetings are accessible virtually. It could happen between July and September. Again, we're hoping at this point that the census data is released at the end of September. With that timeline, then we can start mapping during the end of October, and then having additional hearings again at the end of October, and then the final hearing and approval could happen November 15th. So for a little different timeline, for those folks who don't have primaries, have a more leniency, where again the data could be released at the end of September, and then you have time because there's going to be a lot of jurisdictions, counties and cities have to have their census or have their redistricting completed at the end of this year. So for these folks, you could wait until that process is over and then start your own redistricting process in January, February of 2022. Again, those optional community meetings could happen in February, and then the mapping, we could start that in March and have the final hearing in April. With this timeline, we will know that the census data has been released, and so there could be more concrete deadlines for those folks who choose to go with this timeline, and again, who don't have primaries in June. So just some considerations that we want to reiterate. Expect timelines to change. We hope that the timelines we presented will be the final ones, but we're also expecting change. So for those specifically who have primaries in June, we'll go with that first option. However, we want to note that agencies with November elections, you may find that your county registrar does not want to receive any of their district lines until after the conclusion of the June 2022 primary, due to the counties and cities who are going to need to have their lines in the system. So the registrar may not even have capacity to take in your district lines before the conclusion of the June primary. And then the filing deadlines and other elections scheduling elements, including the date of the primary, again, could be significantly changed. So we're hoping that if you get something out of this presentation, to be flexible, and that will update you with any information on this process. And if you'd like to talk with us and get more information, we have the contact information for Paul Mitchell, who is our owner and CEO, and then Kimi Shigetani, who is our Chief Administrative Officer. Thank you, and just contact us if you would like more information.